Isn't it beautiful? Additionally, TOOCAA is expert of safe engraving, but how does it cut and engraves? Let's find out. Welcome to another laser engraver review video. This is TOOCAA L2, a dyed laser engraver. We can buy it with the several strengths, but this one has the power of 20 watts. I got these products for free, but there is no additional payment for this video. I know many viewers, sometimes even some companies, consider this as a sponsored video. It's your decision. This channel has its own sponsor, and that's the Polymaker. Even in this case, after the product is shipped, I got some guidelines for the review video, but there is no contract and I will follow my script anyway. I have my regular testing methods and materials which I use in this kind of videos, and that's how I will do in this video too. Few words about the safety, which I always mention in this kind of videos. TOOCAA even on the box writes that they are expert of safe engraving, and this engraver has the safety level of class 1. There are 3 categories. First of all, eye protection. With those open frame engravers, safety glasses are basically needed for everybody in that room. If it is an enclosed engraver, well, depend on the covering, but in that case, maybe those safety glasses are not needed. We have to handle those fumes. This means we have to use it in good ventilated room, or if it is enclosed, then we can exhaust those fumes outside of that room. And the third one is never leave the engraving without attention, just to prevent catching the fire. As you can see, I got several boxes here, like this Material Magic box, air resist pump, honeycomb grid panel, and some of these you have to buy separately, or you can buy them together as a kit with the main engraver. And a small reminder, if you want to use this for the cutting too, 2 are very important things, and that's the air resist pump and a honeycomb grid panel. You will have much nicer cuttings, and I will present this in the video too. Few other specifications from the website. As I mentioned, it has class 1 safety level. The working area is 430 by 400 millimeters. The maximum speed is 400 millimeters per second. That's approximately 24,000 millimeters per minute. This is quite big speed, and probably we use it only for the traveling speed, because for the engraving, especially for the cutting, we will go with much lower speeds. I already mentioned that I got this Material Magic box. I'm not sure what is inside, but in these review videos I would like to use my own materials, so the results are comparable with those which I did in earlier videos. If there is some special material inside, then I will use that too. It's time for the unboxing. Oops, sorry, these 2 boxes are not for this video. Let's continue with correct boxes. This is honeycomb grid. And this is the main box with engraver inside. Quickly, let's analyze the content. Let's start with the Material Magic box. We have leather, 3 types, and then acrylic. Interesting, they are 2-sided. For example, this one has the black on one side and green on the other side. So this will be very interesting for this testing. Metallic sheet to protect the workbench, and honeycomb grid panel, which is great for the cutting, and air assist. Air assist pump. I'm very familiar with this type, and not too strong, but it will do the job, and it is very quiet. Only one thing I don't like here, that it has its own power supply unit. This means it cannot be operated from the software, because for the engraving you want to disable this, for the cutting definitely you want to use the air assist. In this case you have to do this manually or into operations. The power supply unit for the engraver has the output of 24 volts and 5 amperes. And this is the main unit, fully assembled, and so far I really like what I can see here. Nice cable management with this drag chain. Nice toolbox with the screwdrivers. Even the user guide is packaged into these boxes. Only one thing I don't like here, and that's the linear motion. These wheels on 2 sides on this metallic element, maybe because I'm a mechanical engineer and I like better the linear rails, for example, but in that case, of course, it would raise the price. On y-axis it is hard to see, but something similar we have here. Only supports on those wheels are from the outside. This is the laser module, 20 watt version. This is the leg for setting the focus. From the top it will get the cooling. Here we can connect the USB Type-C cable, and it is also ready for the air assist connection, and this shield is removable. And these are the elements for the enclosure. We have the panels, and this is the exhaust fan, and only they require some assembling, but off camera probably. Assembling is very easy of this enclosure, and we have very detailed instructions here, but I will skip this part in the video. And looks like we have a third power supply unit, because it is required for this exhaust fan. It's a pity because not only that we need 3 AC plugs near the engraver, but also this means that we cannot operate this from the software. We don't have that quiet standby position, for example. At least it would be good to have some kind of switch here. The assembling was easy. Those instructions are really detailed, maybe even too detailed. It's very bright inside. Now I have a small comment. This honeycomb grid, the working area is only 355 by 355 millimeters, which is not a problem until you don't want to use the whole working area. Now some engravers with a similar structure have the camera here on the top for the positioning. Maybe here it is not so required because it's really bright and we can do this visually. And from all this nice cable management, only this RSS pipe, I have the feeling that it is not solved properly. I think it would require some better solution. And I already turned it on. That exhaust fan is quite loud. At least a switch would be good, so I don't have to unplug every time I want to turn it off. I already mentioned that I got some materials with the engraver, but I like to use my own because in this case the results are more comparable with those which I did in earlier videos. I have here a different thickness of the plywood, MDF wood, stainless steel, anodized aluminum, black acrylic, and at the end I will have some kind of documentation card for this engraver. Setting the focus. And the focus is set to the top of this surface. Doors has to be closed. There is a sensor in the corner. USB key is plugged. Let's turn it on. It has a quiet standby position, which is nice, except that exhaust fan if I turn it on. In this one thing it is really great. Very light and bright engraver. These LED lights are fantastic around it. I will start using the LaserGRBL. Here you can see my settings. I will engrave this logo. This is a little bit weird. I am pressing now the up button, but it's moving down on y-axis. The x-axis coordinates are correct. I'm sure it can be switched somehow, but let's do just quick testing. Boundary check. And now same engraving, but RS is set to the maximum. Okay, the difference is not big, but I can still see that these lines without RSs are sharper compared to these ones. And it's mirrored. Let's try to solve this. In GRBL configuration, we have to change this one parameter, in this case from 3 to 1, and this will invert the coordinate. Or simpler solution, we can just type this one line into the console. And with inverting of y-axis, it engraves correctly now. An important warning, if you invert the y-axis coordinate, in this case you cannot use the homing anymore and you have to work with relative coordinates. For me it's fine, in most cases I'm using relative coordinates. Just in case, let me show you. Let's try the homing in x direction. It works fine. Now let's try in y direction. And the reason for this is that limit switch position is on the back side of the engraver. This is the first laser engraver I ever tested where the 00 coordinate is on the left back side instead of the front left side. Not sure why they decided to do this because it may cause some problem with some software like LaserGRBL. Now we know how to use this with LaserGRBL, but now let's move to its own software. One of the biggest advantages of this engraver is actually a software, TOOCAAStudio. It's a browser based, which is good because it will work on Linux, Macintosh and similar. Only in my case the loading is quite slow, so I think they should improve a little bit their servers. Connecting the device. And it's connected. I analyzed the possibilities of TOOCAAStudio and it is somewhere between the LaserGRBL, which is completely free, and LightBurn. I will do one engraving here, but then I will move to the LightBurn because I have my test files prepared there. In TOOCAAStudio, I don't like that every time when I click the framing, it will do the homing first, instead of the doing from the current position, because sometimes I just want to work with the relative coordinates instead of the absolute ones. So now I want to do some corrections. And again, homing and then framing. And sometimes that RSS pipe is in the way. Even when the position is prepared, before the engraving it will again start with the homing. But I already mentioned huge advantage of this TOOCAAStudio are preset values for each material, and this engraving looks great on first attempt. In the LightBurn we can import the configuration file which was on the provided card, and software will know that the home point is the back left corner. We don't have to invert anything here. This is the engraving test file I prepared earlier. I will modify the speed and also the power between the 60 and 100%. This is real-time speed, but in the future I will speed up these parts. And pay attention to that smoke on the left side of the engraver. I wanted to enable the exhaust fan only after the engraving. This is not fully enclosed. The smoke will come out from the bottom of the frame. This means that exhaust fan has to be enabled during the operation too. It is not enough just to turn it on when you finish the engraving. From 1000 to 6000 mm per minute speed, 60% 100% power line. And to me this one looks the best. And now the cutting. This is 3 mm thick plywood. I will use the air assist and exhaust fan, but both I have to turn on manually. And this time no smoke outside of the engraver, because the exhaust fan is continuously working. The cutting was successful up to 400 mm per minute speed, and it is very nice and sharp thanks to air assist, but I can see the strength is not really equal along the X and Y axis. These are the cut and out parts, which also looks very nice, but now let's see the effect of our air assist side by side on 400 mm per minute speed. Air, no air. The difference is quite obvious, but not only that this is nicer, but also safer, less chance that it will catch fire. And now cutting 3 mm thick MDF wood. This is much harder for the cutting compared to the plywood. Speed 200, 300 and 400, and interesting, not even on 200 it was not cotton. So I will try 100 mm per second, and also I will try 200 mm per second in 2 passes. Cutting at 200 mm per minute, 2 passes was successful, nice cutting, even the cut and out part is sharp, but on 100 mm per minute it is not even cutting through. But I don't even recommend using this low speed from the safety reason. Plywood again, but this time this is almost 60 mm thick. And for this cutting, I need to go a little bit deeper into surface, so I will use this distancer. The first step is for materials between 4 and 6 mm. Cutting was successful on 200 mm per minute in 1 pass, or 400 mm per minute in 2 passes, and this looks even sharper. About 300, not successful, and again stronger along the y-axis. Just for curiosity, but probably this is too much for this engraver. This is 20 mm, not even plywood, maybe basswood or something like that. And first I will try to cut it in 1 pass along the y-axis, and we will see the penetration. Of course, on these distancers I will use this step, but even then this is for the maximal 9 mm, but definitely the focus will be much deeper in the material. This is the first pass, and I will stop the footage for the moment here. Looks like it is almost cut and full in first pass, but I already set 2 passes, so let's finish the footage. This is now cutting in X direction, which is weaker, and here we can see that 1 pass wouldn't be enough with this speed. Along y-axis it was fully cut in 2 passes on 150 mm per minute, but it was very close to full cutting even in 1 pass. This is in x-axis, and only here I can see that it is not finished, but I can break it off. 3 mm thick black acrylic. Cutting at 2, 3 and 400 mm per minute, and only this one on 200 mm per minute was cutting out. It was very nice and sharp. And again I can see much stronger along the y-axis here on 300 mm per minute speed. And now engraving anodized aluminum. These tags are from TOOCAA company, and I really like to engrave aluminum. No smoke, no smell, no fire, not sensitive to the settings. This plate starts to be full, but I will try to engrave something here. 1000, 2000 and 3000 mm per minute speed, and they work very similarly. Now they're not so white like these ones, and the reason for this is that I forgot to change the focus because it has to go lower. Just one engraving, I don't know, somewhere here. It was this engraving on 2000 mm per minute speed, full power. Looks like I could increase the line density, but let's move to the next material. And just one last engraving on the stainless steel, and theoretically if we play with the speed and the strength, we can get some colors too. Well, I wasn't sure that I will success in the first attempt creating these colors. From 1K to 4K speed, first line is full power and the second line is 60% power. Let's try to reproduce that blue color. I'm writing the name of the engraver. Theoretically I use these settings, but the color is more between these two because the plate is warped a little bit. And the reason for this warping is the heat from these earlier engravings. Back to the TOOCAAStudio because I have the preset values. I want to test this acrylic from this Material Magic box. And very useful that we have a preset values even for this two-color, two-sided material. The framing, it starts with the homing, and when I start the engraving, again it will do the homing first. If I understand correctly, it should burn this black part and the green part should be untouched. But it would be good to have some thicker lines here. One more attempt, but I imported here an image with my logo. Now this is much better and very interesting, but it's time for the conclusions. Final thoughts about a laser module. The possibilities are very similar to any other 20-watt diode laser module I tested on this channel so far. It is not fully enclosed. At the bottom the smoke will come out, but this only means that you have to enable that exhaust fan even during the cutting, and it will exhaust those fumes outside. Unfortunately, we needed 3 separate AC plugs, even for that fan. It would be good to have at least some kind of switch here. For the air pump, same thing. We cannot operate it from the software, because for the engraving we want to disable it, and for the cutting we definitely want to use it. I tested several enclosed engravers on this channel, and this one has the nicest view to the engraving. It is very light, even this light strap around is very useful. About TOOCAAStudio, well, it is great that we have a free software which we can use with this engraver. The possibilities are somewhere between LaserGRBL and LightBurn. The only thing I really don't like with this TOOCAAStudio that every time if I do the framing or when I start the engraving, it will do the homing, adding just unnecessary movement to this whole operation. Since it is browser based, this issue can be very easily fixed from their side, and maybe next time we will start the browser, this issue will gone. The material database is good, very accurate, so it is great for the beginner users. They don't have to know the settings for each material. But this is my experience with the TOOCAA L2. If you have some other experience, write me a few lines down in the comment section. Well, thank you for watching and happy and safe engraving.